So this is about the big picture. It is about speculation. It's not to do with facts and it's not to do with processes. It's to do with what if. What if we went and did this? Or what if we did this? What if we tried this for a change? What would happen? It's that part of us that wants to explore and not to inquire about a fact, but to inquire about literally the things that we don't know, the things that are out there somewhere. The visionaries of this world are always dealing in that world of, well, what if we did this? Or what if I took that and put it together? What would I get? So it's that sense of curiosity, but it's even bigger than curiosity. It really is a sense of vision, of possibility and ideas. So
the possibility of ideas, it's almost like a very optimistic, you're thinking that you can affect the future. Can you contrast a little bit with the people who are worried about the future?
Yeah, that's great. So we're all moving into the future. So all of these three patterns of thought are dealing with the future in their own way, of course, because that's really all there is, as far as we understand it, as perceived as human beings. Past thinking or certainty thinking is more saying, I'm not going to do that until I have enough information. So I'm not going to sign up for that until I actually know for certain that it's what I want. Future thinking or possibility thinking is, well, I'll just sign up, and if it doesn't work out, I'll go figure out something else. So there's this contrast of one, the possibility thinking jumps in to find out, and certainty thinking hesitates before going in, and it needs that certainty.
Okay, so let's take a look at the whole picture. I think we've got this whole way of being here in Silicon Valley, which is the possibility thinking, right? I mean, this is the heart of the world's aspirational thinking. This is where people are always living in the future, and they're thinking, I want to just do it. I want to take my idea and I want to make it happen. So it seems like there's a really natural way around this triangle.
There is. I'm going to hop over here and play the weatherman so I can show you. It's a bit easier to see on the map. So this map of ours of the world of thinking has all kinds of information contained in it. So you can imagine people coming up with ideas and really wanting to get their ideas out to the marketplace as soon as they possibly can and execute on them. And only when they really go wrong do they tend to come over here to the certainty thinking and say, what happened? You know, give us some information, give us some analysis. You can imagine a computer like the BlackBerry, where the idea was rushed to the marketplace, and then they really didn't do their long-term thinking. They really didn't do their research. They just went straight to execution. And so now the world's sitting there wondering, well, what went wrong? What can we actually understand? How can we reinvent this thing? And they're going to reinvent it and come back right here, and they're going to go around this another time. And this is anti-clockwise, if you think about it. It's not really using the wisdom of time as we know it. And that really means that this map is giving us a new and different way of thinking about how we organize our thinking.
These words, anti-clockwise, it's sort of anti-wise. It reminds me of a conversation that we were in the other day where a Silicon Valley entrepreneur came up to John and said, I have these great ideas, but as soon as I talk to the VCs, they pour cold water over them. So what's all that about? What pattern of thinking are the VCs showing? What pattern of thinking is the entrepreneur showing?
Well, that's a really, really great question. In fact, the reason that we have created this map and our technology is we can actually map people into this map. So over here in this area of future thinking or possibility thinking is where the entrepreneurs, the idea generators, the creatives come up with their stuff. But now the VCs, unlike angel investors, the VCs, they're sitting right over here somewhere, which really is that area of the map to do with how do we plan it? How do we make it real? How do we bring it down to earth and create concrete results? And what do we know about it? That's all the way down here from the certainty thinking. So if you can imagine these poor chaps down here coming with their ideas, they're all excited, and then these folks, well, they're not actually into ideas. They're into ideas that can be made into processes and that there's information about that can be collected. So the conflict really is one of these two different ways of thinking, these different patterns of thought actually colliding in a way, because these want to keep their options open and these want to bring it down to earth and make it real and create a process that is repeatable, because that's what business is about.
So that reminds me of the big conundrum. So many places around the world are trying to be centers of innovation like Silicon Valley, and they're saying, come on, everyone, let's have ideas. But in a way, they don't have. Silicon Valley is the heart of venture capital in the world. And so there's lots of VCs here for those ideas to be filtered through and tested before they go out. But other countries, other cities have a problem with this because they don't have the VCs to do that testing. So they might start a lot of ideas that end up not going anywhere.
Well, yes, and I think this is one of the sort of the eternal problems. We look at businesses, we say, well, how come businesses so often fail? And in part, if you think about it, if you just take an idea and you rush the marketplace and you ignore these folks who've got all of this information for you that can contribute and perhaps avoid making the mistake, then what you really are doing is you're going anti-clockwise instead of going clockwise and going like, well, I have an idea. Would you actually test it for me before we try to actually make it? In other words, would you tell me what it is about this idea that is going to work, that isn't going to work, whether it's a good idea? So really what we're suggesting here is you can make a much more efficient, if you will, operation if you stop running to the market too quickly and just slow it down and say, okay, how can we discover, how can we learn something about this before we actually spend an awful lot of time and money and energy executing it, which is what all present thinking or this probability thinking is all about.
But these possibility people, they want to just do it. There's a resistance, a kind of inertia, not wanting to go to these people who will pour cold water. In my work, I actually run workshops for people who are trying to generate innovation within their groups. And they have a big problem. First of all, nobody wants to come up with ideas that might be just kind of thumbs down, don't like. So they're really struggling to get innovation going when people are worried that others will say thumbs down. So to me, there's a real gap between the possibility, entrepreneurial, innovating people who want to see the future and the kind of, the skeptical, perhaps pessimistic, show me the evidence people. I mean, how do they communicate with these different ways of thinking? It's a struggle. It's a struggle out there.
It is, and in fact, I mean, how do they communicate? The answer is usually not very well. And I think the reason is and you can sort of see it on our map here. Over here in Future, we have this very kind of frenetic kind of thinking. So the waves of thinking are very quick, whilst the certainty thinkers are much longer, slower. And if you can imagine this choppiness crashing into this long, slow, deep thinking, well, you've got a collision. They're not actually seeing eye to eye. They're not even on the same wavelength, literally. So we actually have to figure out how do the future possibility thinkers stop being insulted and taken aback by people who really actually want to help at the end of the day, because everyone has value to bring in this. So when they consider that their ideas are not sacrosanct, but they're just ideas, and they may or may not prove to be right, the value of these past certainty thinkers is to actually figure out which ideas are the right ones. And so the collaboration that needs to occur across this bridge, if you will, between the two, is a bridge between two very, very different kinds of thinking, one highly conceptual and abstract, and one highly factual abstract. The conceptual being, I've got a new idea, the fact being, well, let's examine exactly how good this is. Now, you mentioned the resistance, and yes, the idea people really don't want anyone ripping their idea to pieces because they would just love to run up here as fast as they can and execute it. Why? Because we love to have people love our ideas. But if we actually allow these people to contribute into it and to actually examine that idea and pull it to pieces and tell us what is going to work and what is not going to work, what we can do is actually get more good ideas into the hands of the probability people who are going to plan how to take it to marketplace.